So hello everyone, and welcome to this short show this afternoon, which is about sustainability. And with me, joining me today is Jenny Lynn. Come on, say hello, Jenny.
Hi, Chris. Hello, everyone.
So Jenny, you and I know each other. We've only met once physically, but we've known each other on Facebook for a couple of years. I thought now.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. And we've both, and the reason we're connected is because we're both keen to do things to change kind of society and community, and to get things moving in a direction which might be an improvement from what we've been experiencing so far.
Yep.
And you were talking to me the other day about a project which involved gardening and stuff, and I thought, this is fantastic, because this is really something that actually we could all participate. Well, not everybody, but anybody that's in a position to do so could very easily get involved, and it could make a massive difference. So first of all, can you just tell us what it is that you're doing?
Okay, well, briefly, it's we're growing veg in other people's gardens, not against their will or without their knowledge, with their participation. So in other words, they offer us their gardens, and we go in with a team of volunteers and sort it out and produce vegetables. And then basically the veg goes, a box of veg goes to the owner in the growing season once a week, and then the rest is either shared out or is sold. And basically that's the core of it, but it's got so many tendrils and so many legs to it that is just really the essential idea of what we're doing.
It sounds fantastic. I have heard of this type of thing going on in, I think there was something I heard about, something in California or somewhere in the States about it, but I've not actually there is lots of different bits and pieces going on, but not this particular sort of incarnation of it. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, there are a few. There's a company called Fleet Farming in the US that they're now in 2 different towns or 2 different states, I'm not sure, and they do pretty much what we're doing. There's a guy called Curtis Stone in Canada, and he runs a very similar project using other people's back gardens, but it's very commercial, whereas ours is less commercial and more community based. We still need to produce money and income, unfortunately, at the moment. But essentially it's more community based. It's more about rebuilding the community and actually removing some of the power away from big mega stores and corporations, so that we become our own governors.
You're talking my language. You're talking my language.
There we go.
So tell me why are you passionate about this? Why did you get going with it? What's the motive?
Okay, so why is a big question, because I mean I could go down through so many rabbit holes just telling you why. So I'll try and keep it as brief as I can. I was and am a psychotherapist and a hypnotherapist, and have been doing that for the last 17 years, and changing people's lives on a very small scale. Significantly, but nevertheless, just one person. And I started to ask myself the question, it's just not enough. When the world needs so much change going on, when we all need to live by a different ethic, what am I doing, locking myself away in my tiny little house, which is what I do voluntarily. I don't want anyone near me unless they're coming to work or they're some of my very hand-picked friends. What am I doing locked away in my little house, doing this kind of work and actually having nothing to do with my local community? And I thought, there am I saying we need to change the world and we need to do this, that and the other. But what I was doing was kind of isolating myself from my community. So I thought, blimey, I better start walking my talk. It's no good me just, posting up all these fancy stuff on Facebook and saying, look, world, wake up. I have to walk my talk, And I think there's been a couple of turning points in the last few years. One, from a personal perspective, my daughter left home to go to uni. So suddenly I'm in the house on my own. And it's like, I really don't have anyone now. I really don't have anyone to interface with or mix with, and I don't, I was grateful that my daughter was with me, but now she's got moved on. And so, I really do have to reassess what's going on. And the other thing was, I went to Australia about 3 years ago, and when I though I knew, I knew what was going on around the world. I'd been, down many rabbit holes up to that point. When I got to Australia, and I don't mean to offend any Australians watching, I just saw England, and I saw these massive corporate names on every skyline around Sydney. I just saw it was a citadel to the Brits, and it suddenly dawned on me just how much of an impact imperialism and globalism has had on local culture and the world at large. And when I got back, I went into this kind of like meditative, low kind of observational state, and for quite a long time, maybe even a year, you feel quite disempowered and vulnerable and helpless, because this is so overwhelming. What can I do to make a difference? So I think the turning point was last September. I went to Kashmir, and I was on a permaculture trip, almost by accident, because I'd been invited to go as a trauma resolution therapist, if you like, working with the permaculture team. And the Kashmir had disintegrated into civil chaos literally 2 months before we left. And when we got there, we literally walked into a war zone with police and military on every corner, with tear gas and everything going on. And we were there to sort of try and inspire some hope in these people living in this war zone. But the one thing that really struck home about Kashmir was that despite curfew, despite really severe military infringements on our local people's liberty, they'd all managed to survive and thrive, and at least on a health basis. And the reason for that was that local vegetable growers had been distributing food. There had been food throughout Kashmir, and nobody had gone starving. And even if people, because they weren't working, because there was a military close down of the country, even if they had no money, those people still survived. And to me, that was a tribute to two things. The fact is that local people were still growing vegetables, despite the fact they lived very close to Srinagar city. And two, the spirit of community was very strong. And I thought, wow, we've got to bring that home, because we have no community. We have I live in a small town in Great Dunmow. There is a kind of community, but do we help each other? Do we really act as a community? No, we know that. There's a kind of cliquey kind of community, but it's not that kind of like, let's go out on the streets and let's really be neighbours to each other, So that's where Get to Get It came from. I was threatening to do my garden, my neighbour's garden, and I just said, look, can I get in your garden? I've been threatening for the last 3 years. He said, get on with it. So I literally just started taking this garden right back to scratch, and then I sort of got some local press, and I got some volunteers involved. And now it's kind of gaining momentum, and we're setting up a CIC. We've got all kinds of local people interested, and we're waiting for it to really, flourish and grow. And I guess, sorry.
It's fabulous. This sounds great.
Yeah, and I think, I'd love to make it a young person's activist kind of movement, because the future is with our young people. Before my daughter went to uni, or maybe even last autumn when I was talking about it, she said, Mum, nobody really wants to do this. You won't get anyone young involved. And then 6 months later, she says to me, do you know, Mum, it's actually quite a movement in young people. So I said, wow, do you mean you've seen it? She said, yeah, there's quite a movement of young people getting involved in sustainability and gardening for yourself and all this kind of back to nature stuff. And I said, well, that's the kind of audience I'd like to harness. But to be honest, if it's a community-based thing, we will be reaching out to every strata of the community, from old age pensioners to mental health to primary school children, because we can cover off things with my therapy background, ecotherapy, we can cover off, all kinds of rehabilitational type of projects, along with entrepreneurial spirit. So if young people want to come along and they have an idea, I'd love to support it. I'd love to encourage them and engage them in what it is they could do to make their project work within the auspices of ours. Get digging it.
You might want to have a chat with Debbie King. She's passionate about aquaponics. So I mean, if you get when you get to start to have multiple gardens and you're starting to work out what's the best use of the space that you've got there, then there's all sorts of potential for some amazing projects, and getting young people involved in designing that kind of stuff, it would be really quite amazing.
Yeah, I've been growing veg for about 7 or 8 years now at 2 allotments down the road, but you know, as part of my research, just, you know, to look at ways of gardening that works with clay soil, for example, because in Essex everything's very heavy clay. It's not easy to grow vegetables in clay. So what do? And you know, I do my trawls on YouTube and I look at what people are doing around the world, and you come across aquaponics, you come across no-dig gardening, you come across wood chip gardening or hugelculture or permaculture. There's so many different ways of engaging with the natural environment. Most of them are about trying to emulate what happens naturally. So, you know, we're trying to really take what nature does naturally and emulate it. So, so wood chip gardening is just about having ground cover, because nature never leaves a piece of ground uncovered.
or unused, in fact.
Or unused, you know, it's always producing something. So
what's I mean, the really fascinating thing was when you went to Kashmir there, because what that brings home is ultimately the things that have absolute value are food and water.
Yes.
Without which we're dead, basically.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter how much money you've got, it doesn't matter how big your house is, it doesn't matter how fancy the car is. At the end of the day, if you haven't got any food, you haven't got any water, it's over, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. You know, and you know, you see people have this blind faith that we will always be provided for, that we will always have money, that we will always have a state that looks after us. But we know how fragile some of these things are. And, you know, this blind faith is misplaced. But we've kind of been nurtured from the cradle to the grave to believe that this is how life is. And it is at the moment, but it may not always be. And what's more is it doesn't have to be. This is where the empowerment comes along. It doesn't have to be that you leave your house at 6 in the morning to go and work a job that you really can't stand, to get the money to pay for a house that you're never in, to go back to work the following day and do another job that you really can't stand. How is that living? You know, how is that living?
I don't, I mean, people aren't happy, basically. So whether it's a model that we like or we don't like or whatever, it's not a recipe for happiness. So ultimately, if we're going to question it, if we're going to challenge it, we can't stay doing what we're doing. Something has to change. And you know, what you're talking about here is in terms of bringing back, you know, grass. This is like, it's not, it's vegetables, but it's like it's grassroots stuff, isn't it? I mean, it's right at the front end of like. And it's so what's the goal? I mean obviously I can see this could blossom into just sort of all sorts of different things, but you must have some sort of ideas for where you'd like it to go.
I think firstly we'd like to get the actual vegetable project growing. And the name of the company that we're calling it is called Get Digging It, a growing community. So in lots of ways we're growing. So we want to get the veg thing growing, but we really want to be able to be an umbrella kind of outfit for all kinds of community projects, be they mental health, trade, maybe cafe, anything really, but that there is no concentrated hub as such. I want it to have its tendrils into the community rather than to be a place where people go. It needs to be truly communitarian and be a network of people around and about. I mean, the initial project is to get it rolled out in Uttlesford, because these are the people that are supporting us at the moment. There's the Uttlesford Volunteer Service and the Dummo CVS. So there's and the Ideas Hub. So we're looking at really setting it up in Uttlesford, but ultimately it's to roll it out across Essex. Now, that doesn't mean that we have a corporate model that's exploiting people. On the contrary, this is about engaging local people in finding their own solutions and actually having, you know, people across the county, potentially the country. Let's
I mean,
let's,
the whole concept. I mean, you know, once people start to remove the barrier of I can't do things and start to
yes,
say I can do things, you get things like, well, hang on, I've got this blimmin' power tool here that's doing nothing, and then people start collecting together tools and sharing them, and you don't need to go and buy a new power tool. We've got one over here, you can just borrow it for the day, and those kinds of things are already happening. But once you start the ball rolling,
yeah,
of course people start to think, well, actually, why don't we do that here as well as that, and then it gets all those ideas cross-fertilized, and suddenly you've got a community really helping each other practically.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, even as we've been talking to Dummo Volunteer Service, we've come across a project that Dummo are running called Men in Sheds. And basically, they're the over 65 men whose wives want them out of the house during the day, because obviously they haven't been in the house for the last 40 odd years. They go to this community shed and they build stuff and they hang out with other men and they do men things. And you know, and wow, you know, the minute I heard about them, I just gave them a plan. I've got one of these like architects square drawing pad type things, and I just gave them a plan of a squash tunnel that I want built and a small shed. And I said, please, we really need this for a nominal fee, you know, 30, 40 quid. They're going to build for us, and what's more is we're going to do it out of pallet wood, because pallet wood is freely available. You can get it anywhere. So
I mean, there's one in Hemel around the corner for me, same sort of concept, Hemel Shed, I think it's called, or something, and they are out there. And one of the things that I'd quite like to do is really kind of almost be a publication sort of force, if you like, to get all these good ideas prolificating, because there's nothing to stop us, is there? There's nothing to stop us.
Only our own inertia. This is a crazy thing. If we just got off our butts, and you know, but I think it takes a certain amount of, certainly in my experience, if you like, it's taken quite an amount of shock and realization to get to the point where I realize I am as empowered as I want to be. And
you kind of got it already. So you can imagine if you kind of weren't in the space you already were, which was thinking this isn't right and there could be a different way or whatever, if you're still thinking there's nothing wrong.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, we've got a massive project on our hands, and this is why, you and I, Chris, both, you know, we share stuff on Facebook that isn't necessarily confrontational, tells a whole story all at once, but engages people in the possibility that they can take action. You know, we can protest, and better than protest, we can actually act. You know, we can take action, and however small that action is, it's the aggregate effect of communal action around the world and locally that will make the difference. And you know,
absolutely. And I say constantly, every single person has a role to play in this, because they're alive and they're breathing and they live somewhere. It's like you're saying about the ground, nature doesn't waste any space. We've got all these people, none of them are useless. They're all here for something.
Yes.
So everybody has an opportunity to contribute something, whether it's teaching someone else a lesson. It doesn't matter. We're all here for a reason of something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, us sort of got something called the Time Bank. I think most towns have got this now. It's either Time Union or Time Bank, where, you know, you can exchange your time. No, not exchange it, just offer your time to people, whichever skills you have, which is a great idea, but it's very slow to take off, because it's still in the realm of those people that are retired or housewives, or, do you know what I mean? Somebody who's got plenty of time and doesn't know what to do with themselves. Whereas really, I want to engage people who don't have much time, but actually want to spend 2 or 3 hours a week creating incredible value, you know, amazing value.
And I think that really comes into play if you get busy people who are prepared to donate or give or spend a bit of time doing what they're passionate about and what they're brilliant at. Because what might take somebody in a charity 3 days to do, someone who's got the nous, the knowledge, the skills, could probably do that in an hour. But they want to do it in an hour that they've got, that like 11 o'clock at night sometime, not Friday afternoon between 2 and 4.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, you know, everyone's got their contribution to make, and you know, the volunteers, I love them. If they can come on a Friday afternoon between 2 and 4 and help me in the garden, God, I can't wait. You know, bring it on. But you know, that people have all got their place, haven't they? Really, and you know, I've got people mentoring me, and I've got people supporting me in what I'm doing, and I'm mentoring and supporting others. So all the way down that line of command, you know, we have empowerment going on. Wherever you are, you can be empowered. You know, there's something you can do. So yeah,
we're going to wrap it up now, Jenny. But thanks ever so much for doing this. What this is and I'll just tell the people who are watching this. This is basically an introduction to some further work that you and I are going to do to be even more expose, if you like, of what's going on down there in Essex. And I'll be trotting down there, and we'll do some video work of some of the things you're up to, because I think if people can practically see what we've been talking about, it might give people might push them over the top.
Push them over the top.
Yeah. So, but thank you ever so much for spending the time with me here.
No worries.
I'll get this shared out, and let's see what happens.
Brilliant.
All right, thank you.
Sorry about that phone ringing.
That's all right. No problem. Take care now.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.